Central Park is one of the most visited urban parks in the world. Over 42 million people walk through its winding trails each year. It's been in movies, books, songs, proposals, protests, and daydreams. But what if I told you New York's most iconic park almost never existed? The land was almost sold. A community was destroyed. Politicians tried to kill the project multiple times. This is the hidden, uncomfortable history of Central Park. Let's rewind to the early 1800s. New York City was booming, but also bursting. Thousands of immigrants arrived from Ireland, Germany, Italy. The city was noisy, overcrowded, and filthy. Open space? Virtually none. Children played in alleys. Families lived 10 to a room. The only public areas were cemeteries or churchyards. Health problems were rising. Crime was rising. But nature? There was no nature. Meanwhile, European cities like London and Paris were creating lush public gardens. So some of New York's wealthier residents started asking, why don't we have a park? The idea was bold, a massive green park in the center of Manhattan. But the moment it was proposed, conflict exploded. Developers wanted to use the land for housing. Real estate barons saw a profit, not public good. Some newspapers called it a waste of taxpayer money. Political leaders didn't want to fund a park for the poor. Others worried it would attract undesirables. Racism and classism were baked into the debate. The city government dragged its feet for years, stalling votes, canceling plans. But citizens kept pushing. The rise of public health advocates, artists, and urban reformers gave the park momentum. Eventually, the city chose 843 acres of land in Upper Manhattan. But there was a problem. People already lived there. One of those communities was called Seneca Village. It was a mostly black neighborhood with churches, gardens, and homes. Many residents were free African Americans who had purchased property before the Civil War. In fact, some of them had the right to vote because they owned land. But in 1857, the city invoked eminent domain. Officials claimed the land was swampy and unfit for living. More than 1,600 people were displaced. Their homes were demolished, their names forgotten. Until recently, even most New Yorkers had no idea Seneca Village ever existed. Central Park was built, but not without loss. Despite the controversy, the city approved the plan. But what would the park look like? That became the next battle. Two men, Frederick Law Olmsted, a journalist, and Calvert Vaux, an architect, submitted a bold proposal called the Greensward Plan. Their vision? Rolling meadows, winding paths, wooded groves, hidden bridges, and man-made lakes that felt natural. Their goal was to create a space that felt wild and healing, a rural escape in an urban grid. They wanted all people, rich or poor, to walk the same paths. And here's the twist. Olmsted believed landscaping could be democratic, that nature could equalize society, if only for a moment. But let's be honest, Central Park was never truly for everyone. Early on, the wealthy used it to showcase their status. They arrived in horse-drawn carriages. Immigrants and working-class visitors were watched, policed, and often excluded. Segregation wasn't official, but it was practiced. People of color were often told to leave. Public gathering was monitored. Music was regulated. Even walking too loudly could get you arrested. The park reflected the city's inequality, even while trying to soften it. Just because the park was built didn't mean it was safe. In the early 1900s, developers tried to carve roads through it. In the 1930s, parts of the park were nearly repurposed for highways. In the 1950s, one plan proposed turning part of the Great Lawn into a parking garage. Yes, a parking garage. Each time New Yorkers pushed back. Artists, musicians, teachers, activists, they rallied, protested, and defended the park. The park has been redesigned, restored, and protected many times over the years. But the battle has never really ended. Today, Central Park is a symbol of what cities can be, of what they almost weren't. The ghosts of its past still whisper through the trees. The buried foundations of Seneca Village still rest beneath the grass. The bridges still wind over lakes that were never there. It's a place to breathe, to protest, to perform, to grieve, to fall in love. And that's what makes it sacred. Central Park wasn't a gift. It was a fight for space, for justice, for beauty. And even now, every bench, every tree, every shadow is a reminder that some things are only built because people refuse to give up. You don't just visit Central Park. You walk through history.